This is the conscious hour, and people ask the question, who is this guy and why does he know so much? And how does he get this information? Well, let me just explain to you really quick. I've been an analyst for my whole life, but a technical analyst clear back from 1988 on. Okay, so let's get into this whole thing. I got a phone call. October 7th was the unprovoked attack. I got a phone call in December, on December 8th, from a friend I knew long, long time ago, tied into the military over in Israel long, long time ago. Anyways, and he said, you know what's going on? I said, yes. We had a quick conversation, and at the end of the conversation, I haven't talked to him for 13 years. He said, stop him. I looked at my phone at 5:30 in the morning and looked and went, huh? I said, you mean BB? He said, yes. And he hung up. And so I didn't talk for 4 days, but what I had to figure out was why. You always got to figure out why. And so I did a deep dive. From that point on, I dove and I didn't talk to anybody for like a month. I didn't go out. I just surfed everything, trying to figure out what was the reason, what's their agenda. What I found was this. First of all, I found the map of the Greater Israel Project, and that's been around since Ben Gurion when they first formed this whole area. Okay, that map shows that they're going to take parts of Egypt, they're going to take parts of Saudi Arabia, they're going to go all the way up the coastline, they're going to take parts of Syria, they're going to take all of Lebanon so they can have the entire coastline. I found a 7 trillion gallon liquefied natural gas reserve. Chevron oil's been out there for a long time, but there's 7 trillion gallons of liquefied natural gas sitting there. I found the Trans-Asia Railroad hub that's coming in from Asia, from China, and they needed to get access to the Mediterranean so they could bring stuff in faster than bringing it around by ships. They were going to do the Ben Gurion Canal. They were going to use nuclear weapons to blow up the canal so they could build a two-way canal. And then my joke was, well, what are they going to do with the soil? Well, let's throw it off the side real easily. We can grow olive trees. And then there was the Intel factory. Intel got a $3.4 billion grant, and they were going to build a $25 billion microchip factory. Well, how could they build one? They need water on the coastline. Makes sense. The other one was going to be a joint U.S. military base on the northern corner, right up there, and that's what was driving it. And then I had to say, well, wait a second. They've got this thing. They've got all this expansion, and then I got lucky. In February, it was February 3rd or February 4th. My birthday's on February 7th. I saw a video because I'm surfing everything, analyzing everything, and I find this video, this reel, this TV broadcast, and Jared Kushner's at Harvard University talking about the future Gaza City. And I went, bingo, bingo. They have developers and they're going to take the entire coastline, like I said, from Egypt all the way up into Lebanon and make it into a Viva Las Vegas. But he was talking about Gaza's future city. Then I started to figure out how much money are they going to cost? Where's the backing coming from? And how much money is not allocated, but, kind of committed, like, yeah, we'll put a billion in here, 10 billion, 100 billion, whatever. I found a number, it was a $400 billion for that total build out. So, what are they killing the Palestinians for? You know why. It's all about corporate profiteering. So, listen to Colonel Wilkerson now talking about what they finally discovered. What I find really shocking was this. In April of 24, the third week, Jared Kushner was in Gaza promoting waterfront real estate. I had put this information out. I didn't have him in Gaza promoting it, but before he ever got to that, I was sending this information to the Biden administration, all of them, to my congressional members, and said, this is the projects that they're building. And no response. And now we're finally talking about it. Okay, there's a number that Colonel Wilkerson is going to talk about from Francisca Albanese. He got the prior report to her final report that she's put out just now. Francisca Albanese, everybody knows who she is. The numbers of Palestinians dead are 680,000 people have been murdered, whatever. And what's really shocking is on August 26th of this year, Netanyahu made an announcement that said all the Palestinians, 2.1 million, have to leave. Well, then about 3 weeks ago, he comes in and says the 1.1 million of them have to leave. That means there's a million dead bodies under the rubble. Let's get into Colonel Wilkerson.
So we'll see what happens. But I can't believe that Europeans aren't coming out more broadly and more loudly to categorically reject this. And this is tied to Iran because for Iran, the Gaza Palestinian issue is central. And that's another thing people in the West don't understand, that's practically written into the Iranian constitution that they will defend anybody who's oppressed, like the Palestinians.
Saudi Arabia did not refuse actually, or at least they verbally refused to allow their airspace to be used and to allow their military installations that the U.S. hosts there to be used for a strike on Iran this time around. And when Patrick brought up the Qatar strike from earlier 2025, I was like, wow, I completely forgot about that. But that is very true. Uh, there definitely is this tension, and there were reports that the Gulf countries supposedly were part of this, and Turkey too, part of this effort to stop Trump. But your reactions to all of this, and even the Board of Peace, it's even worse, Patrick. I think when you were mentioning I think it's like you need to pay $1 billion within the first year to get permanent membership. If you can stay there for 3 years, if you don't pay the $1 billion to Donald Trump himself, but if you don't, but you have to leave after 3 years. So I guess he thinks that you'll have egg on your face as a country if you don't do that. It's a complete and utter farce, but it does also negate the fact that, as you said earlier, Hamas and the resistance is still there and likely still going to be governing. So it's going to end up in a big clash too, which brings me to you, Colonel Wilkerson. The Trump administration can't even address this situation in Gaza, which is a very, what is it, the size of Washington, D.C., a prison camp that just experienced genocide.
I think the Omani foreign minister, who represents a country who, in my view, is the quintessential diplomatic entity within the Levant, was right when he said categorically the cause of instability in this region is Israel. And our press didn't pay a lot of attention to that, understandably so. Our press is pretty much owned by Israel, or at least significant editorial boards and sections of it are. New York Times leading the pack. He's right. He's absolutely right. And increasingly, people are being unable to deny that, whether it's to their own oppressed publics or whether it's to themselves or whether it's to both is really irrelevant. They're beginning to realize that that is the problem. So, as was just hinted at or said, I guess, the Abraham Accords are dead. Any kind of reconciliation between the Arab states and Israel, I think, is dead, at least for a generation, if Israel even exists that long. I don't think it will. A more important point to me, though, is in this Gaza thing, we are seeing what I call an attempt to build a Hobbesian world in its most garish, raw concept. What we're seeing is Bibi Netanyahu making statements, for example, like, well, phase two is really irrelevant to me. I don't see anything happening in phase two that would be relevant to me at all. At the same time, Francesca Albanese, for example, has released a report that says, for example, among other criticisms, harsh criticisms of Israel, that probably underneath the rubble we are going to bury not 60,000, not 70,000, not even 100,000, but closer to 500 to 600,000 dead Palestinians, 75% of whom are women and children. I have no problem believing that because I've worked with, and I know it's a lot more sophisticated now. I'd love to see somebody in the Hexas Pentagon do this. I suspect they have. You take the tool that the military has essentially for bomb damage assessment. It's much more sophisticated than that. And it is.
So basically, he's confirmed that the numbers are up to 600,000 or 680,000. But like I said before one time, August 26th, Netanyahu told the Palestinians that on a BBC broadcast that 2.1 million of you have to leave. And I went, where are they going? Are they going into the sea? Okay. And then about 3 weeks ago, Netanyahu said that the 1.1 million Palestinians in Gaza need to leave. That means there's 1 million people dead under the rubble. So to do what? Because the rich boys club out there want to build a Viva Las Vegas, starting, if they could take parts of Egypt, all the way up the coastline, all the way through Lebanon, and who want to expand into Syria. This has been on the roadmap for Israel for a long time, and now they're manifesting it. It's called the Greater Israel Project. This is the Conscious Hour. Tune in, share, please donate, like, share. Thank you for tuning in.